Welcome to the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief of thenationalpulse.com. It is Friday, September the 18th. We're broadcasting live from downtown in Washington, D.C. I don't have any prepared remarks for you today. I just really wanted to reflect on something I read early this morning that came out late last night that I think you're all going to want to hear, or at least I want you to hear it, so you have to. Oliver Darcy is a reporter for CNN. We were talking about him yesterday here on the show as one of the turncoats, used to work for a conservative news site, and then once he'd buddied up with enough people here in Washington, D.C. and in Midtown Manhattan, well, then Oliver Darcy suddenly became too cool to be conservative anymore and flipped not only to being a liberal or a progressive, but a full-blown, out-and-out globalist. And he calls himself a reporter, but frankly, I don't think reporters tend to write things like this. I want to get this on screen for you here. This is from Oliver Darcy's email that he puts out in the evenings. So let's just keep that on screen. I want to read this to you guys. It says, Trump was watching the town hall, the Joe Biden town hall last night, and that Trump was commenting that he was getting softball questions, which he was, from Anderson Cooper. And then, you know, they were whispering to each other in the break while they were pretending to social distance on stage during the live show, the live broadcast. But then Oliver Darcy, you see at the bottom of this email here, Oliver Darcy says, of course they are treated differently, i.e. that Trump doesn't get the same kind of softball questions that Oliver Darcy says that it's fine for Joe Biden to get. He says, the notion that Trump should be interviewed in the same fashion as Biden is absurd. Okay, so a double standard. He's admitting a double standard should exist. And then in bold, you know, just to hammer the point home, Oliver Darcy, you know, really ram it home. Trump has no allegiance to the truth, and it shows every single time he is in front of a camera. He lies, misleads, and promotes conspiracy theories at an unprecedented rate in modern American politics. Okay, I'm done with that. What? This is a reporter. He says Trump has no allegiance to the truth. And then he goes on to say, that is why the news coverage of him is more aggressive than it is with Biden. And we've got some guests on this show today. I've got Harlan Hill in studio with me here in Washington, D.C. He's a board member for the Trump 2020 campaign. And we also have Kane, the pseudonym of the founder of Citizen Free Press, will be joining us for the last three segments, last half an hour of this show as well. And I want to turn to Harlan right now, in fact. Harlan, Joe Biden is a guy who literally had to drop out of the presidential race 30-something years ago because he was found to be plagiarizing Neil Kinnock. He's had other plagiarism stories in his past. Yeah. He tells outright fibs, so many gaffes, but forget the gaffes. People make gaffes. I mean, Biden makes a lot of gaffes, but forget it. Just talk about the lies here. But Oliver Darcy says that Trump has no allegiance to the truth. Trump never had to drop out of a presidential race for plagiarizing somebody else's life story.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, in 1988, Joe Biden did notoriously have to leave the presidential race because, you know, he's a documented liar. And actually, the media, to their credit at the time, did hold his feet to the fire. You know, if only we could have a little bit of that allegiance to the truth in the modern American media. But beyond that, you know, during the Obama administration, Joe Biden lied about health care and people's ability to keep it. That was like a hallmark of the messaging coming out of the White House at the time. They lied about the cash payments to Iran. We can go down the list. I mean, it was lie after lie after lie. Benghazi. It's shameful, and there is absolutely a double standard. But how does Oliver Darcy get away with admitting that there's a double standard in his own email, and no one points to it? Right. I mean, this is the first time that I've even heard this. I mean, this should be on the front of Fox News. Right. Right. They're too busy avoiding George Soros as a topic. Actually, it's a good segue because this is the thing. The media isn't doing its job right now. I mean, by no stretch of the imagination is the media doing its job right now. And the media get very upset
about the fact that there's all this citizen journalism going on out there. But the reason there's citizen journalism out there is because ordinary people recognize that the media isn't doing its job, and they're trying to fill that gap. So whether you're following, Fog City Midge on Instagram, you're getting more news that way than you get from reporter Oliver Darcy, who's part of the, I'm sure he's part of the Soy Boy Journalism Guild of New York or whatever it is, right? And they got all these, they all give each other all these awards, all that. But I get better news, or at least more accurate representations of scenarios that are taking place around the country out of citizen reporters. And they're mad at me for doing that?
Well, what's striking to me, Raheem, building off of that, is that the mainstream media, including Fox News at this point, they get away with openly, freely admitting their bias. As you were referencing the George Soros clip from Outnumbered on Fox News a few days ago. I mean, it was transparent that the producers were coming through their ear, telling them to skip the subject, to change subject, to basically come out and defend George Soros. And so they're getting more brazen, even in what used to be the right of center media, in their bias. And how are they getting away with it? It's only through the citizen journalists, it's only through social media that we're finally shining a light on this. But what's concerning is that it's pretty likely that, should this be a contested election, that those outlets that we have, the platforms that we have for citizen journalists, are going to clamp down on them.
Right. Yeah. And this is why it's so important, ladies and gentlemen, that you support work of real news organizations. And I implore you, we do every week read out the names of some of our most recent sponsors, supporters on this show. So we're going to be reading those out in the last segment here today. Stay tuned for that. I implore you, support our work. Go to fundrealnews.com. I've got some great stories lined up on this show for you today. Harlan Hill and moi, Raheem Kassam, will be right back. Well, our guest in studio today is Harlan Hill. He's the author of They're Not Listening, How the Elites Created the National Populist Revolution. I think we have a picture of the book we can put on screen for you there. I want to make sure all of you guys get that. It goes through the MAGA movement, the Gilets jaunes, the yellow vests in France, the Brexit movement in the United Kingdom. It goes through exactly how people like Nancy Pelosi, Marie Antoinette of our age, helped to create the national populist movement. We're very grateful for them because they keep throwing fuel on that fire. There is so much going on right now, a signal through the noise, that we like to bring to you from the National Pulse. And I will tell you as well, in the next segment we'll be discussing this op-ed that we have up on the Pulse website. We're not huge on op-eds, I'm not huge on op-eds, but the member of the Northern Ireland Assembly approached me and said, hey, Joe Biden is trying to weigh in on Brexit and the border issues, and he's got it all wrong. I want to write something for your site about it. So we were absolutely grateful to Jonathan Buckley for putting that together for us. It's the lead story on thenationalpulse.com at the moment. You've got to understand, they are so trigger happy, they're so intervention happy, and they haven't managed to have any interventions in the last 4 years. The political establishment of Washington, D.C. and beyond. But now Biden wants an intervention in the Northern Ireland border situation, and he's ruffling feathers there. Well, Jonathan Buckley calls him uninformed. We'll get to that in just a minute. Right now, more news, more signal through all the noise. Remember, we've talked about all of the big steal, the coup that's happening. We've talked about it on the National Pulse nearly 2 months now. And other people are just starting to catch up, starting to understand, oh yeah, actually, this is a big deal, Raheem. We should have listened to you. Okay, yeah. The Democrat-dominated Supreme Court of Pennsylvania ruled yesterday they're not going to have the Green Party on the ballots. They're going to extend mail-in deadline voting to 3 days after the election, on November the 6th. And in addition to that, there are going to be more of these drop boxes, these mail-in ballot drop boxes. They're going to pop up all over the place. You put your ballot in there, I'm sure it'll be perfectly secure. Sounds just exactly the way a modern country, a first world country, runs its elections, right? No, that is absolutely how a banana republic runs its elections. want to turn to Harlan Hill for more of this now. Harlan, CNN even, I mean, you've got to give credit to them on this. They're not hiding it anymore. Their headline on this story, big win for Biden. The fact that Pennsylvania was changing the way this election works unilaterally. So CNN knows this is a fix. They're saying it's a fix.
Absolutely.
What's going on?
Well, I have to credit the National Pulse and the work that you're doing there, Raheem, because if it wasn't for that, no one in the mainstream media, no one in the conservative right would even be talking about the Election Integrity Project. And this will define the outcome of this election. This is the fight. It's not going to be turning out voters. It's going to be stopping Democrats from stealing this election by stuffing the ballot box with mail-in ballots that we cannot trace back to individual voters. And in many states, the ballots that are cast through the mail identify the party with which you are registered, allowing mail carriers to destroy your ballot. This is an egregious abuse of power by Democrats because they know that their only path to victory in 2020 is to steal it. And the most egregious example of how they're changing the rules in the last minute and they're perverting the democracy that we have is extending the mail-in ballot deadline by 3 days in Pennsylvania. So you're telling me that after we've determined what the outcome in Pennsylvania
boxes for weeks after the election and claiming that these are allowed.
Yeah. Well, it is concerning, Raheem. I mean, I think that our democracy, this republic, only functions as long as people have faith in the way that we cast and count ballots. And this is something that I've cared about for a long time. I used to run a company that was trying to restore election integrity. But, you know, I'm not sure that we can do much unless we raise public consciousness around this issue, which, feeding out of the last segment that we just did, talking about the media, that is why it is imperative to fund a new generation of conservative media outlets and organizations like the National Pulse, like America's Real Voice, because if we don't, there will be nobody to hold us account. I mean, if you had decided to go back to the UK and talk about Brexit, I don't think anybody in this country would be talking about this project and this deal that the Democrats are trying to carry out. But one more point. The Department of Justice needs to look into every Democratic firm and operative, including the person that wrote the op-ed in the New York Post admitting that there will be a fraud, and to determine you know, who's funding this, what are the mechanisms by which, specifically the mechanisms by which they seek to steal this election, and prosecute. Because this is a crime. It is a crime. It is fraud. To stuff the election, the ballot boxes in the way that they're promising to do. You
think Bill Barr should announce an
Absolutely. Do it today.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. When we come back, we're going to rile Harlan up some more.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the situation in Northern Ireland with Brexit and with the op-ed on our site at the moment by Jonathan Buckley. He's a member of the Legislative Assembly in Northern Ireland. He thinks Biden should butt out of his country's politics. We're going to get into that and a whole lot more. Harlan Hill came from Citizen Free Press, and yours truly, Raheem Kassam, will return in just a second. Well, welcome back to the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam here in downtown Washington, D.C. I'm glad it's Friday. Got a few programming notes for you. On Monday, we will be doing the show live from New York, New York. And I'll be joined by none other than the president's son himself, Donald Trump Jr. will join me on the program. So don't miss Monday at 3 p.m. here on Real America's Voice. Also want to say a big hello to the Comcast audience. I understand that we're now on Comcast in Chicago, so hello to Chicagoans. Is that what they call them, Holland? Chicagoans?
Yeah, sounds good enough.
Chicagis. I've only ever been to Chicago once, but I liked my. I think I spent like probably about 36 hours there. I very much enjoyed it, and then just finally, as well, for all of you guys and gals watching, I want to make sure you know that Stephen K. Bannon and I will be doing an event in New York next Monday, the Stop the Steal Tour. is beginning. The plot to steal the election. We're going to be speaking up there, and we'll bring you some video and some clips from that here on Real America's Voice on the National Pulse and on the War Room Show. So you're not going to want to miss any of that. We're working very hard to do the real news here, and we're incredibly grateful for all of you guys out there who are supporting us in that endeavor. We'll be reading some of your names out as we progress through the show. If you want to be one of those, make sure you head to fundrealnews.com. Holden Hill, author of They're Not Listening. Well, I'll tell you who's listening. Jonathan Buckley, MLA, is listening to Joe Biden. Joe Biden made this heinous intervention in Brexit just a couple of days ago with a silly little tweet that read, "We cannot allow the Good Friday Agreement that brought peace to Northern Ireland to become a casualty of Brexit. Any trade deal between the US and UK must be contingent upon respect for the agreement and preventing the return of a hard border, period." It shows, and I don't expect you to know the intricacies of the deal in the United Kingdom, between the United Kingdom and the European Union, but it shows, but I do, and Joe Biden is a moron. He has no idea how this thing works.
Yeah.
The only way that there's going to be a hard policed border is if the EU want to tariff our goods. That's the only way. So he should be lecturing the EU, not lecturing the pro-Brexit side or the British government about any of this. And Jonathan Buckley does an amazing job of walking us through it in this op-ed. It's a very quick read, but it's incredibly important. And he demands that Biden keeps his nose out of this situation if he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he basically calls him completely uninformed. He calls it an uninformed intervention in that. And I just can't understand. I mean, maybe you can explain this to me a little bit. In the middle of a presidential campaign, why Biden's tweeting about the Good Friday Agreement.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't make electoral sense because I don't think many, if any, Americans really care about this issue. But aside from that, doesn't this sound an awful lot like election meddling? You know, isn't he trying to inject himself into a difficult electoral environment in the United Kingdom?
Yeah.
You know, and frankly, why would anyone in the UK really care what Joe Biden thinks about it? Now, when he's in the White House, you know, if assuming that he gets there, you know, maybe then. But it seems very premature. They have weighed into some issues as a campaign that don't make any sense to me. You know, another one that doesn't make much sense to me, and we talk a lot about, is transgender bathrooms.
Right.
So they're out of touch with what mainstream Americans care about. And some of the things that they choose to use the precious amount of time that Joe Biden has, the amount of attention that he's able to get, the coherent...
The amount of time he's awake in the day,
yeah.
You know, the 3 hours he's awake in the day.
To choose this is very strange.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they think that it's going to appeal to some Irish Americans,
right?
But you know, that's marginal at best.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make much sense to me. It seems like bad policy, but it actually shows you if Joe Biden were to get to the White House, that he's willing to leverage the far left agenda, the globalist agenda of the European Union, while we negotiate trade deals with one of our greatest allies, the United Kingdom. It doesn't make sense. I mean,
well, he tweeted the letter out alongside this, and the letters from several members of the House, and the letter effectively says we're not going to negotiate, we're not going to allow a free trade deal through if we don't get certain things that we want out of this situation guaranteed, right? So here you have Democrats in the House threatening an ally in the United Kingdom in a position, effectively moving closer to the European Union, and for what?
It's counter to America's interests.
Right.
It makes no sense.
Right.
The only reasonable explanation is that the Democratic Party, seeks to empower globalism at the expense of nationalism. And I mean, this is just the latest example of it.
They can't afford Brexit to succeed.
Exactly.
It runs totally contrary to that.
Exactly. And it sets a precedent, so it creates a blueprint for the rest of Europe. And so they don't want to see that domino completely fall.
Yeah. And just before we go to break, I've got one more serious question for you. How do you like my new chairs?
Oh my God, these are far and away better than the originals. Yeah.
It was very painful. Okay, Harlan Hill, I want you to stick around.
Sure.
We're going to have Kane on from Citizen Free Press in the next half an hour, but I want you to jump in wherever you feel you want to, need to, would like to. I want you to tell our audience, though, where can they follow you? Where can they get the book?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. It's at Harlan, Harlan. And you can find links to buy the book on my website, they'renotlistening.com. It's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, all those.
It's a very important read. I really appreciated getting that book early on, and the dedication is especially something that
it mentions Raheem.
It mentions Raheem, and you know me, ladies and gentlemen, anything that mentions Raheem is good by me. This is the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam. I'm going to be back soon with Kane from Citizen Free Press. Now, if you're wondering what Citizen Free Press is, well, it's the new Drudge. We had Matt Palumbo from the Bongino Report on yesterday, another one of these aggregators that's doing just great work, pulling traffic away from Matt Drudge, the pro-Biden Matt Drudge. And Citizen Free Press is another one of those aggregators getting just absolutely tons of traffic. I mean, I think nearly 60 million views last month, which is absolutely extraordinary numbers. I wish I had numbers that big. We'll get there one day. But Kane from Citizen Free Press is going to come on, wrap the week for us. I think he's got some questions for me as well. So stay tuned for that. Kane is just an incredibly charming and very smart person, watches the news all day, every day, knows exactly what's going on, is across all the different filters, whether it's CNN or National Pulse or Breitbart or Reuters. He looks at all of it. We're going to get his views on all of it. The state of the race here in the United States from Kane, Citizen Free Press, Harlan Hill, Raheem Kassam. We return in just a second. Welcome back to the National Pulse. Moments away, Kane from Citizen Free Press will be joining us, I hope, on the show. Harlan Hill is our guest in the studio. I'm Raheem Kassam, and I am happy it's Friday. It's been a very, very long week, and I really want to thank everybody who took the time yesterday to share that monologue of mine in the beginning of the show. We worked incredibly hard to bring you real breaking news as a part of an investigation, an ongoing investigation that we've been doing for weeks and weeks and weeks now, and we didn't have it quite all ready yet, and then just before the show I just kind of really put the pedal to the floor and wanted to bring you all the details we could during that. We've got so much more, just so much more about the Transition Integrity Project, all the people who were involved with it, people you didn't know were involved with it. We've got some just great investigations and exclusives coming over the next couple of days. Natalie Winter's hard at work, I hope, in the National Pulse office on Capitol Hill. Kane joins us now from citizenfreepress.com on the line. Kane, how you doing, brother?
On Skype, but anyway, that's fine. We'll do cell phone.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I think we had some technical difficulties on the Skype side of things, but we're really grateful for you joining us here on the show today. First and foremost, I just want to get from the top every week. I want to get your thoughts on the last week, what we've seen over the last week. What have been your standout stories? What do you think of the race so far? I mean, we were talking, you and I were DMing earlier about that, what's going on in Pennsylvania. I talked to Harlan Hill about the big steal that's taking place. Steve Bannon and I are heading up to New York to do an event. He's kicking off a national tour to talk about the steal and inform the American public what's going on. The first event being Monday, and I'm introducing him there in Midtown Manhattan. So, Kane, over to you. What's on your mind?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that excellent Rasmussen poll. I don't know if readers have seen it, but Trump hit 53% approval for the first time in a year. I think it was exactly a year ago, right as the impeachment charade started, the last time that he was at 53%. And before people discount Rasmussen, they need to understand, I think most of the right knows, but the left on Twitter certainly has no idea, that Rasmussen was extremely accurate in 2016 in their popular vote prediction, and I think overall they ended up being ranked the second most accurate poll. So when Rasmussen has Trump at 53%, the left gets scared. And I think we saw a little bit of that from Pelosi last night. I don't know if you caught the clip. I posted it on my site an hour or so ago. But she, for the first time, spoke out aggressively against rioting, looting, and violence. And as you're obviously aware, because you talk about it all the time on your show, you know, all Democrats were silent on the violence. And so it's interesting that they're finally starting to speak up.
What do you think's informing panic? Polling panic, electoral panic? Is it feedback? Are they putting together focus groups and focus panels? Harlan, jump in here as well. Kane, I've got Harlan Hill in the studio with me also, joining us for this conversation. Kane, over to you, then Harlan.
Well, first I'll say, Harlan, you did a fantastic job, and I can't wait to check out the book. I've been watching you for a few years, and it's always interesting to hear what you have to say. You know, as we head into this weekend, we're getting closer and closer to that first debate. And that's really where I think attention needs to go. You know, can Biden keep it together for 2 hours? What do you think, Harlan, on that? Do you think the first debate, the big debate last cycle, 2016, was the third debate? If you remember, that was Trump stalking Hillary on the stage. I was screaming in my living room as I watched that. One of the most fantastic moments in modern political history. What do you think the Trump-Biden first debate is going to be like, Harlan?
I think that Joe Biden would give Mike Bloomberg a run for his money for the worst debate performance in history. I think that Joe Biden is increasingly feeble. He's clearly deteriorating by the month. And, I mean, it's evident to me that he would be flustered by President Donald Trump, because Trump's going to come out the gate just swinging. Yeah. And Joe Biden doesn't have the mental fortitude anymore, and he doesn't have the practice and experience as of late to combat an opponent like President Trump.
But Kane, isn't he going to come out to the Despacito as his walk-on music? That'll
get him.
Yeah, that'll get him, right? What do you think, Kane? How do you think it's going to go?
Well, like Harlan said, Trump's going to come out swinging. I think it's, number one, it's going to be the most watched debate probably in multiple election cycles. Hopefully they, actually it makes me think of that was a story earlier this week where Joe Rogan volunteered to host a 4-hour debate with Biden and Trump. That would be a fantastic watch. We're not going to get the same thing with, I think, is it Chris Wallace who's doing the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah. And without the crowd, if you remember from 2016, a huge part of Trump's success in these debates was the reaction he got from the crowd, going all the way back to the primary debate, the first one when he was asked about Rosie O'Donnell, and the huge laughs that he got. And so, it's switching gears a little bit, but it feels like everything has been stacked against Trump as we hit this year, right? In February, before the pandemic hit, he was leading in every single swing state. I remember the polls, and the numbers were something usually about 4 to 5 points, right? 46, 41, 47, 42. So he has the COVID bad luck. Then with the pandemic and Biden getting an easy excuse not to participate in life, hide in his basement, and only show up for occasional events, then call his administration the Harris administration. And now it'll be a debate without a crowd to react to Trump. And obviously Biden never gets a laugh, so he's not missing anything. It's Trump that's going to be hurt by not having the crowd. Overall, I'm super excited. I've never been more excited for debates.
Well, okay, when we come back, Kane, I'm going to ask you, when we come back from the next break, I'm going to ask you what debate coverage is going to look like on citizenfreepress.com. We're still trying to figure out ours at the National Pulse, and obviously here on Real America's Voice, you're going to have live debate coverage as well. So people will have their options of real news that night, from citizenfreepress.com to Real America's Voice to the National Pulse and beyond. Maybe we can all link up and do something together. Who knows? Kane, I will say this, and Harlan, I will say this. I think Joe Biden's behavior of late has lowered expectations so much that he may not actually come out of the first debate looking all that bad. I mean, put it this way. Most of the country is expecting Joe Biden to fall asleep and drool on himself during the debate. And as long as he doesn't do that, he's going to look quite good to people, right? And that's what I worry about.
Here's my counterpoint to that. I know you're going to break, so I'll do it quick. You know that
Kane, you don't have time. We've got to do it after the break. Kane, citizenforpress.com, Harlan Hill, Raheem Kassam. We'll be back in just a moment. I'm breaking things here in the studio in the break. I thought that's what the break was for. You just break things, you know, get some aggression out. Welcome back to the National Pulse on Friday, or as I like to call it, Kane Day. We always have Kane now on the Fridays. I hope it'll become a regular thing. From citizenfreepress.com, the top link on the site right now. Kane says, "I will represent CFP Nation today at 3:30 on the National Pulse TV." Is that what it is now, Kane? It's CFP Nation?
Yeah, I went with CFP Army at first, but it really is. You know, it's the 180,000 or so readers that I have, and they're super excited, and they love your show. In fact.
Well, we're really grateful for everything you do for the site. Make sure that you're always linking into us, and we're just we're so grateful for it. You had a thought at the end of that last segment about the debate and my assertion that Joe, it looks so bad that if he just stays awake, he'll look good up there. Kane?
Yeah, right. You talked about him lowering expectations. You know, I think it's all going to depend on gas. I really do. Because, and I think you guys touched on it in the first segment, 95% of all of Biden's gaffes have been hidden from the American people. My mom has no idea of this. You know, we're posting stuff he says or fails to say every day, multiple times a day. But the American people aren't seeing it all. It's completely being hidden by all of the mainstream media. They have to protect their candidate. So that's what I'm looking forward to, because it'll be an unfiltered opportunity for the electorate to actually see the candidates. And
you think the moderators are going to try and protect him?
Certainly. Although, Chris Wallace is a strange cat. He's as much as Trump voters hate the guy, he does tend to be a jerk to the other side as well. So I think probably Chris Wallace maybe the least, but the other two, Steve Scully. It's going to be super interesting to see Scully. I read a story a couple weeks ago where he was the backup moderator for 2016. Had no idea there were backup moderators, but it makes sense. But so Scully's been preparing for this moment probably for 20 years, ever since he joined C-SPAN. And that's actually going to be really, really interesting to see how he handles it, because no one's ever seen Scully outside of that studio practically. And everything is so sort of regimented on C-SPAN. That'll be interesting. And the third host was an MSNBC hack, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it Kristen Welker, or who's the third?
Yeah, Kristen Welker.
Yeah. So I imagine she will protect Biden probably the most. But it'll be interesting. That'll be another thing that we'll be able to pay attention to with all three debates is how the moderation changes, and if it does at all, in fact.
I think the president would relish that. I mean, that plays right into his hand. Everybody knows that the media is going to come after him, and that's almost baked in.
He could just sort of go, look at what's happening here.
Yeah.
They've got 4 people debating me. Yeah. They still can't win.
Yeah. The only person, I mean, when I said that President Trump was going to come out the gate swinging, I mean, it's not just going to be at Joe Biden. It'll be at the media and the moderators, too. He knows that they're going to try to play this game unfairly.
Gentlemen, question to you both. Harlan first. If you were doing the debate prep with the president, would you advise he comes out swinging?
Well, he should, but he's got to balance that with the office that he holds, right? I mean, he can't resort to name calling. I don't think that people would view that positively. I mean,
what do you mean name calling though? He can't call him an idiot, but can he call him Sleepy Joe? I
think so, absolutely. I think I think people's toleration for that.
So nicknames are fine.
I think so. I think so.
Kane, would you suggest that that Trump come out swinging?
Yeah, and nicknames, and he ought to break out a few new ones. He ought to come with Hayden. I think Hayden Biden is working really well, just the way people are reacting to it on my site. And yeah, he has to be aggressive from the beginning. He's got to show the energy difference. I mean, that's the one thing we're all noticing more than anything is Biden seems half asleep everywhere, and Trump is alive. He's flying, he's doing another rally again tonight. He's all over the country. And so Trump just needs to, and if you mean by coming out swinging, showing that he actually can do the job versus Biden sleeping his way through it, absolutely.
No, but I mean aggressive. I mean aggressive debating. I mean, should he come out and be an aggressive debater? Should he be louder? Should he talk more? Should he seek to interject?
Absolutely. That's all part of seeming like he's the candidate who's alive, who's not, who's not in a coma or not there on, through the use of chemicals. Who knows what, there's all kinds of rumors out there about what Biden, what he can take in order to perform for 2 hours to make his brain function a little bit better. But so a little tiny shift on this is, what about the vice presidential debate? What do you think is going to happen there? No one's talked about it.
Right, that's a good point. I think that may be tighter. Yes. I think. Come on, look. I think Mike Pence is, before the audience gets upset, he's obviously got the right on his side. Like the policies will be more true to what the most of the American people, I think, want than Kamala Harris, who is really just beholden to so many different wings of the party at the moment. But I think Kamala actually does have a swagger about her on stage. She used that to knock Biden down a few notches in the first or second, whatever it was, Democrat debate.
She killed it.
Yeah, but before she rode back and was like, no, actually, I love you. Could I be your Veep?
Right. Will she be able to stop herself from giggling? I don't know if either of you saw the clip from yesterday, but she broke into a 20-second giggling clip.
Yeah.
And that's what, if you've noticed,
that's what I call the Natalie Winters special.
The Natalie Winters special. Well, you can tell that they've spoken to her about it, right? From the very first appearance that she did, once she was named vice president, she was so much more serious than she had ever been on the campaign trail at any point. She almost didn't smile through the first couple of press conferences. And so obviously she knows her weakness is the giggling. But yesterday it was 10 seconds long, and it was embarrassing. And the headline I went with was, Kamala Harris breaks into giggle fest. This woman wants to be your president. And it's embarrassing, and I hope we see that. To answer my own question about the BP debate. What are the
trainers she keeps wearing everywhere? The sneakers she keeps wearing everywhere? Is it the Converse?
Yeah.
Converse and Timberland.
And the Timberlands. I just think, you look at, if you're an international statesman and you're looking at that as the next potential vice president of the United States, you're thinking, great, we are going to walk all over this person. They don't, they don't fit for purpose. They don't dress to the occasion. Kane, we've got to jump to a quick break now. We're going to be back in about 2 minutes' time. Kane from citizenfreepress.com. I want you to all go to the website, citizenfreepress.com, bookmark it in your browsers, make it your homepage, and really show Kane some love. He does such great and amazing work, and taking Matt Drudge down is just fantastic. We'll talk to him about that after the break, and I'm going to get his thoughts on Fox and Soros too. We return. Harlan Hill, Raheem Kassam, Kane in just a second. Maybe we should get Miles Guo to do a remix of his Take Down the CCP song. We do Take Down Drudge, something. I don't know. It's Friday, I got loads of ideas floating around, no energy to deal with any of them. I do want to spend a moment, though, thanking all of our supporters. If we can throw the names up on the screen of our supporters who have joined the National Pulse as members this week. We're calling our membership program The Nationalists. And here are some of the new nationalists. I want to read out Calvin C., Karen F., Kurt S., Jason U., Erin B., Adrian H., Stella W., Judith C., Matthew C., and Jessica C. I want to thank and so many more names of people who are joining up to support Real News. You get some benefits for joining. You get a private Discord chat channel. You get Make Families Great Again baseball cap. You get a signed copy of my latest book. And and more. We also have a lifetime membership now option on the website where you actually get, I'll call you personally, we have a one-on-one conversation, did one of those this week with one of our new lifetime members, and a very cool black card for your wallet. We're still in the realms of designing that. I've got some cool designs that we're working on, so we'll put it on screen next week so you can see. I know it's just a card for your wallet, but it's nice. It's nice to be a member of something and take pride in supporting something that you think is worthwhile. So if you want to be part of that, it's thenationalpulse.com/support, and I'm very grateful for all of you that already are. Back to the news and back to the views of Kane and Harlan Hill. Kane down the line, Harlan Hill here in studio with me. Kane, I wanted to talk to you again about Matt Drudge, because Matt Drudge, is diminishing, but it's not going to go away entirely as a problem for the political right and for the president. So what's the latest on Matt Drudge? You think you're getting even more to the bottom of what's going on here?
Yeah, there was a little bit more information that I failed to let the audience know last week, and it's interesting because from our interview, probably the part that your audience reacted to most on Twitter was a discussion of Drudge, and even sort of the famous Paul Joseph Watson did that video earlier this week where he pulled a segment from your show. So here's what I failed to mention: when I said that there's a well-known conservative website operator that had gotten confirmation from Matt by email that he was still running the site, what I failed to mention was the very next day, Matt linked to a story from that editor's site. And so since people are trying, we're all reading tea leaves here, right? We're trying to find clues whether Matt is doing it. So if it were all fake at this point, Matt wouldn't have had the ability to reach out to the new owners and say, hey, I want you to link to this guy. So I think that's another bit of proof. And here's two more. Why the heck would he still be linking, the new owners be linking to robot sex? So,
why don't you explain to the audience just what you mean by that? Because I'm not sure everybody has been that attuned to Drudge for years and years. You're right.
I forget that all the time. What it is for 2.5, 3 years now, Matt Drudge has been obsessed with the robot future. And the aspect he's been of that he's most obsessed with is sexuality. So he's posted 2 to 3 times a week stories on robot sex. This is absolutely true. I am not exaggerating. 2 to 3 times a week for 2 years. And it's become a topic on message boards. People talk about it everywhere across the interwebs. And so that's just another, he's still linking to them. He did a couple of them this week. So if he did actually sell, and this is just a giant, sort of a giant cover-up making us think that Matt is still running the site, they're taking that extra step with those robot sex stories.
Harlan, the lead story on the Drudge Report right now, and I very rarely go to this website anymore, but I just thought I'd have a look while Kane was telling us about robot sex. I thought I'd have a look about what was going on, and the lead story is Trump's own campaign manager didn't vote for him in 2016, public records show, and it's using a very bad picture of the president up there. The second story is President slams Biden for using teleprompter while using one himself. And then the big picture story, he has this in the middle of the page, is the 200,000 number of the number of people with the virus who've died from the virus. This is just outright pro-Biden propaganda at this point. I'm beginning to wonder if he's not taking money from the Biden campaign to do all of this.
Yeah. Well, and why? Back in 2016, he was a booster for Trump.
Right.
It doesn't add up, and maybe Kane knows, but it's perplexing to me as somebody that goes to the Drudge Report still. I mean, it's been a habit of mine for 20 years. Maybe not 20, but 15 years.
You are only 22 years old.
To go to the Drudge Report every morning. Yeah. And I've seen the stark change, and it's really only been in the last 2 years that it's gotten egregious. So there's got to be some financial incentive, or he was personally insulted by the president in some way.
I think that's it.
Did he want a Medal of Freedom or something?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so what is it then? Is there a specific instance of Trump insulting
I think it's
Matt?
personal.
What is it? Yeah.
I've discussed this. I've thought about this probably more than anyone ever should. I think it's personal, and I talked about this with Matthew Lysiak, the Drudge Revolution author. As we know, Drudge visited the White House a couple of times, right? We got word that he was tighter with Jared Kushner. And this smacks to me of something personal, because as Harlan just said correctly, everything is negative about Trump now. There's no middle ground. A year and a half ago, this was a slow process. First it started, to be positive Biden articles and some negative Trump stuff. Now it's all Biden all the time, and there is never a positive article about the president. There really isn't. I don't think I've seen one in a week. So to me, it smacks of something personal having happened between the two, or Drudge being somehow offended by something. And it feels more like a personality thing. Like, I don't really, he's still a capitalist, or at least we can believe he's a capitalist. So for him to be so aggressively getting on the side of the new Marxists, which the Democrats are, that to me that smacks that's something that overrides every other belief that Drudge has, and we all know the only thing that can override stuff like that is emotion. So I feel like there was an insult, there was something that might have happened.
We're at the end of the show here. Just remind our audience, what's the website, what's the Twitter handle?
Yeah, as you know, I could care less about social media, but I think the Twitter handle is @CitizenFreePress. The website is citizenfreepress.com. We publish headlines 18 hours a day. I update from 10 a.m. until 4 a.m., 7 days a week. I've worked 1,275 straight days. And the reason Citizen Free Press is successful is my readers, my commenters. It's them, not me. They made the site. So I hope everyone has a good weekend. I completely agree with you. I feel the same way about our audience. We've got to go, Kane, but thank you so much for joining us here for week 2 of the Kane Show here on Fridays on the National Pulse. We're incredibly grateful for his time. He's a busy man. Thank you to Harlan Hill, another busy man. Make sure you get that book, They're Not Listening. We'll be back on Monday at 3 p.m.